Before I know it, there's going to be a new little bundle in our house, a sweet new baby. But before that can happen, I have to birth this child. So I wanted to share with you guys some of the things that I do and I've done with all of my pregnancies to prep my body and my mind for a more comfortable, smooth, dare I say, easier delivery. Hello friends, and welcome back. So let's talk about prepping for birth. I just made myself an iced coffee. I'm gonna sit down, I've got a quiet house, and I love talking about everything relating to labor and birth and the preparation that goes into it. The third trimester is always my favorite trimester because I love this part of it, because you're actually going to get to meet your baby soon. Pregnancy is quite the journey. It's very long, and sometimes when you're like in the beginning or the middle of it, you forget there's even like a kid that's going to come out of this. But towards the end, there's so much excitement and anticipation, and I love to channel that energy into prepping my body for birth. So if you are new, a little background on me. This is my fourth baby, planning to have my fourth unmedicated birth. I've done that with all of my kids, and I really do prefer that route. And there are things that I do each time to get my body and my mind prepared for birth. That being said, all of my births have been different. I'm hoping that this one's going to be just casual and straightforward and smooth. We'll see how that goes. Birth can be very unpredictable. And I have a whole list basically of things that I do, but I also just want to say, like, I do not do these all perfectly every single day. I feel like with the more kids that I have, the more lax I've become with doing each of these things stringently, because I'm more tired, I have less time with more kids, and also I just feel like I have more of like a confidence going into it, knowing what to expect, knowing that I've done it several times before and that I can certainly do it again. And that confidence, you know, certainly helps me to relax, which is one of the most important things when it comes to labor and birth. That being said though, labor and birth is quite the marathon, and I want to do whatever I can to prepare my body, because one, it can be unpredictable, and two, it's not an easy thing to do. So I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can that's reasonable, so that I am as ready as I can be. So let's start with all of the ways I physically prep my body, because regardless of what kind of birth you're planning to have, whether you're planning to get an epidural or not, having your body be as, you know, in most optimal state for giving birth is always going to be beneficial, whether you feel what's going on or not. So one of the first things that I do, and again, I've done this with every pregnancy, and that is drink red raspberry leaf tea. I personally start in the second trimester with 2 cups a day, and then in the third trimester I up it to 3. I basically just I have this big Yeti mug because I prefer to drink it hot. You can also drink it iced, but I will fill that whole thing with water, and then depending on whether I'm making like 2 cups or 3 cups, I just add more loose leaf tea to my little tea strainer thing, and then I'll just sip on that throughout the afternoon. So I just make it a little bit stronger basically in the third trimester. If I had to make 3 individual cups like 3 times a day, I would literally never do it. Like, it would just never happen. So I just basically make 1 batch. You could also make bigger batches if you like it iced. You can keep it in the fridge just to make it super easy. But red raspberry leaf tea has been used and recommended specifically by midwives for many, many years. And it basically is a uterine tonic. So it's going to help prep the uterus and all, you know, really your uterus is a bag of muscles. It's going to prep those muscles, make them stronger, more toned, so that you can have more, the idea is to have more productive contractions. So people who drink red raspberry leaf tea, now of course with all of these natural things, there isn't like tons of evidence-based research out there. There's some, but it's more anecdotal, and I'm always fine. Like, I'm down to try it. If it's anecdotal, I don't care. It's worth a shot in my opinion. So you see things like, you know, shorter first stages of labor, more productive contractions, shorter, you know, labors in general, just basically a more productive labor that stalls out less, and it's just by drinking tea. Like, that's a very simple thing to do, and again, it's completely natural, so that's something I've done each time. I bought like a big giant bag, I can link it down on Amazon, of just loose leaf tea. You can also buy the bags too, it doesn't really matter, it's just your preference, but I will link that down below for you guys, the exact one that I have. The next thing that I do starting around 36 weeks is I start eating dates every day. So there's some discrepancies in like how many dates that you should eat, and that's only because there's two different kinds of dates. So I always buy medjool dates, which are the big ones, because that's just always what's available to me. But if you get the Nour dates, which are the littler ones, you want to eat 6 of those because they're a lot smaller. You're basically shooting for like a certain amount of grams of date per day. And I gotta be honest, I don't love dates, but you know, they're fine. They're like sweet. You can make them tasty. I'll share a couple ways that I actually like to eat them. And it's like the only way I can eat that many for that many days in a row and like get them down and not be sick of them. But this is kind of a similar with the red raspberry leaf tea. Women who eat, you know, the 3 or the 6 dates a day, they often have like it really softens the cervix. You can have a shorter first stage of labor. These are just some of the things that are kind of thrown out there on the internet. And you know, just like an easier, more productive, smoother labor experience, which is lovely. And again, it's something that is easy and it's natural. So I am always down to try it. Some people put dates in smoothies, or you can just eat them with like peanut butter on them. My favorite way to eat them is actually with a little bit of mascarpone cheese, like smeared on the top, and a little sprinkle of cinnamon. They are so good. There's something about the balance of the cheese and the date that makes it just not so like overly like overkill sweet. And plus cheese has protein and it has fat, especially if you're getting the whole milk kind. So that's going to help balance out that sugar, because dates do have a lot of sugar. It is natural sugar, but you know, it's a hefty amount of sugar to be taking in every day. To be honest, I'd much rather get my sugar from like a chocolate chip cookie, but that is not going to do anything for my cervix. So I'm going to eat dates for now. The next thing I'm doing is actually the first thing that I've never tried before, but I've heard amazing things about, and I can't believe I've gotten this far to my pregnancy journeys without ever hearing about this, but that is the Gentle Birth Tincture. It's from Mountain Meadow Herbs. You can get it online. I will link it down below. And the reviews for this stuff are pretty amazing. Like, a lot of women say it even almost works like a little too well, like just very, very quick, productive labors, like no stalling, which I think is pretty awesome. And again, it's just a mixture of herbs. I do have the one that doesn't contain blue cohosh. They have one that doesn't contain that. Blue cohosh is like a little controversial. I mean, so many women have taken like the regular tincture and there's never been any issues, but I just figured, I don't know, why not just be on the cautious side? And I was able to find this one online. So I got the one without blue cohosh. This one also does not contain red raspberry leaf in it. The original one does, so that's why I'm still making sure that I'm drinking my tea. But I'm excited to report back on if I think this helped. Okay, the next thing that I do is I use a spray called Clariderm. I use this pre-baby and then also postpartum as well. So this is basically the base is coconut oil, and then it's loaded with like powerful healing essential oils. It's from Young Living, of course, that's where I get all my oily things. And basically around 37 weeks or so, start spraying this down there, like think spraying your perineum, a couple times a day, 3 times a day, up until birth. And this is meant to prep all of the tissues down there. And so many women in our like Facebook groups and stuff have reported that when they did this, the pregnancies they did this with, they didn't tear. Now that's never been the case for me. I have torn with all of my kids. However, the first one was with my daughter was like a second-degree tear, so it was, you know, fairly significant. But the other 2 were like more along the lines of like abrasions. I think I needed like 1 stitch, like they were very, very minor. But regardless, each time, second degree or super minor tear, my recovery has been like almost nothing. Like I haven't been super sore or super swollen after like that first day or so. I feel like I always recover so fast and so quickly, which is amazing. And I've never had a pregnancy without this, but I feel like, I mean, that certainly can help. But then I also use it postpartum too to help things heal even faster. So this stuff is amazing. A little bit goes a long way. It's a little bit on the pricey side, but like if you have one bottle, at least for me, that certainly lasts like all through the pre-baby and then also postpartum usage. And then the last like supplement type thing that I use is evening primrose oil. I learned about this in my first pregnancy from the midwives that I was seeing. I also have a lot of friends who have, you know, had like home births or whatnot that swear by it. And this is something that is meant to, again, kind of like soften and ripen the cervix. So you can, again, I'll link mine, the one I have down below. You can get it on Amazon. And around 37 weeks, I start taking like 2 orally, but you can also insert them vaginally, which is really fun, like right before you go to bed. And that is just another thing that I do to get my cervix all nice and soft and ripe and ready to open up and let a baby come out. All the other physical things I do are actually like physical things. So trying to go for walks. In my perfect world, I would go for a walk every day. I am not good about working out while pregnant. Haven't been since my first pregnancy. But walking is, not only is it, you know, it's good exercise, you're getting outside, you're breathing fresh air, it's all good things. But actually like the physical act of walking can help baby to be in a more optimal position. It helps baby to, can help baby to move down. So it's just good to be as active as you can, and going for walks is a great way to do that. And I try and do that as much as I can. Lately, I've just been going, I've been taking the dog. Matt is like, just go. I got the kids and I go, and it's like so blissful. And I listen to some of my pregnancy affirmations, which I will get to in a minute. The next one, and this one I think is so huge, and that is doing the Spinning Babies, like the daily, I think it's called the Daily Essentials, but it's like their daily stretches. So I learned about this in my 3rd pregnancy. I will link it down below. You do have to pay for it. I think it's like $16 or something. It's not a crazy expense, but it's just a one-time thing. You get access to the video, and that will show you all of the stretches that they recommend. If you've never heard of Spinning Babies, it's an excellent website all about getting baby in the most optimal position to give birth. And so basically doing these stretches every day is just helping to balance your body and make sure that everything is in proper alignment so that the baby can get in the most optimal position. Why do you want them in the most optimal position? Because it makes it a little bit easier for them to get out through that pelvis and the birth canal and actually be born. Now, I did these for the first time in my 3rd pregnancy, which was my son Beau, and his labor, while I did have like a major stall in my labor, I don't think it had anything to do with physically how my body was. It had everything to do with mentally. I just didn't want to be in the hospital, and I was, and that's a whole nother story, but I just didn't really feel calm and safe. I felt very like a lot of adrenaline anyway, so that's a different story. But when things finally got going, his birth was by far the easiest of all of my 3 kids. Like during transition, I was literally, I'm not saying it wasn't intense, but I was literally just laying in the hospital bed, completely still. I didn't make a peep. I was just completely calm, completely at peace. And he just, like, I wasn't moving around. I wasn't trying to get him down. Like he was just, I basically just laid there, and he like moved his way down, no problem. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, he's here and it's time to push. So that was by far my easiest birth experience. And I feel like the only thing I did differently that time was add in those stretches. And I've heard so many other moms talk about them. So this for me is a huge one. I try and like, I would typically do them at night, but with this pregnancy, I'm just so exhausted that I try now to do them during the day, you know, just when I'm just with my kids, and they don't take that long. But they're really, I think, help prepare my body big time. The next one is sitting on a birth ball. This is something that's going to help keep your, again, like pelvis in motion. It's going to help keep your body balanced. It's also really good as you get closer and closer, you know, to your due date and beyond, to help baby get in a good position, help baby move down. So having a birth ball around is always a good idea and you can't go wrong. Plus, a little mom tip: they are like magic when the baby is here, especially during like that fussy witching hour time of day. Bouncing the baby on the ball is always how we get the baby to sleep, you know, at night those first few weeks, because they can just be fussy around that time, and we have always sworn by it. It always ends up lingering for weeks and weeks beyond when I actually give birth. And then the last thing I do physically to prepare my body is chiropractic care. So I've seen a chiropractor with all of my pregnancies. Seeing a chiropractor that is specialized in the Webster technique is really what you want, because they really know how to work on the pelvis and, you know, get it in the proper alignment and make sure that your body's really balanced. In my very first pregnancy, when I went for the first time, she actually explained to me that my pelvis was actually like a little bit twisted, and she was able to work on it and get it into alignment. That was the first time I'd ever gone to a chiropractor. But if you can imagine, you know, you only have this certain amount of space for baby to get through, and if it's twisted, that reduces the space a little bit. So you want to make sure it is, you know, as aligned as possible. And I also just find that the chiropractor helps so much with just like the aches and the pains of pregnancy. I always feel amazing after I go. And again, I've never had a pregnancy where I haven't done it, but all of my births have been, you know, successful unmedicated births, and I do feel like chiropractic care for me has played a big role in that. Now for things I do mentally, this list is much shorter to prepare myself to go into birth. The first thing is hypnobabies. I have done this with all of my pregnancies. I bought the course with my daughter when I was pregnant with my first, and with her I did the entire thing. I did the course, I did all the tracks, I listened to everything like pretty much to a T. I didn't use the tracks in her birth as much. Like there's even tracks like for every stage of labor, like you're supposed to listen to and like completely stay like basically in self-hypnosis. And I didn't use those really when I was actually in labor, but I felt so confident going into labor. I was so calm. You know, I was a first-time mom, and I had a, like, you know, I went from I think like 3 centimeters to her being born in like 5 hours, which is, or maybe even less, maybe it was more like 4, which is pretty good for a first-time mom. I like shocked the midwives with how quickly things progressed. They thought it was going to be much longer. They told me that afterwards. So I do feel like prepping your mind, like all the things I talked about, prepping your body, are all great. But if you are planning on having an unmedicated birth especially, it is so important that you can relax. This is something I've learned firsthand in the different births that I've had. My first went pretty smoothly. My second, I've experienced where you completely lose your calm. I completely panicked when I was in transition because the nurse told me I wasn't in transition, and I was like, yes, I am. And she was like, no, you're only 5 centimeters. So I like completely panicked. Anyway, my daughter was born 20 minutes later. I was in transition, but I lost all my calm. I was tensing up, and it was truly very, very, very difficult. Like I would describe that as like agony. Like I understand how women are like, somebody help me, get me the epidural, because that's exactly what I was saying. Now, third birth, completely different. I was completely calm through transition. Never panicked, never let like that anxiety creep in. I didn't get like wiggly and like I just totally stayed calm. And it was, I like basically, I wouldn't say I breezed right through it, because again, it was very difficult, but it was challenging and intense, but I was able to get through it no problem, without even like literally making a peep. I was completely still and completely calm and relaxed. So that to me shows how important it is to be able to get to that place of calm, even in the face of like a lot of intensity, and wanting, maybe like your nervous system wanting to like freak out. So training your brain to go to that place beforehand is super important, and I don't think it's something that I would have been able to tap into without practicing a lot beforehand. Now with each pregnancy, I feel like I do it less and less and less, because at this point I kind of know how to get into that calm space. And when you're actually in labor, you have so many hormones like going, this whole cascade of hormones that are helping you to stay in that place. But anyway, so I do the hypnobabies. I've done the tracks, you know, each time. And then I also love they have these pregnancy affirmations, which you can listen to at any time. It's not a hypnosis track. And that's typically what I like to listen to when I go out for walks. And it's just all really positive things. And if you listen to that over and over and over again, it's just going to frame your mind that you are totally capable of doing this. You can have a peaceful, comfortable childbirth. You know, you are healthy, like all the things that you might have fears about or worries about, it's basically positive affirmations that are going to counteract those. So if you're listening to them every day, they're so helpful. And that has been a huge help for me each time to go into birth, not being fearful and just feeling really confident and really ready to do it. Another thing to do to prep mentally, and this is more so for my first time moms out there, this is something I did in my very first pregnancy, and that was take a really good birth course so that you can actually understand physically what's going on. If you don't want to, I mean, I highly recommend taking a course, like whether it's online. There are really good ones online nowadays. I've heard great things about the Mom and Natural Birth course. I've heard good things about the Built to Birth course. I also love her YouTube channel. But even aside from courses, whether you take one or not, a couple of really good books that I would recommend are Ina May's Guide to Childbirth and the Bradley Childbirth Method. Whether or not you actually use that method in birth or whatever, there are just excellent explanations of what's physiologically happening during birth. And to be able to wrap your mind around all of that is very helpful. Okay, you guys, so those are all the things. It's a lot of things, but I do take this pretty seriously because giving birth is like truly a marathon, and the more that you can prepare, in my mind, the better. So those are all the things that I do to get my body ready for birth. Before I know it, I'll be back on here with a birth story. I probably have a few more weeks to go, and I am just so excited. I'm actually really looking forward to going into labor, and I just think the whole process of birth, while it can be intense, is so beautiful and just so joyous, and I'm just so excited for it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found some tips that are helpful or something new to try this time around if you are a fellow pregnant mom. But thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.